Hello, Saints. I'm looking in the book of Amos. Actually, we're going to take a look at a few of the things I call the bad men of Amos. And what God is doing is He gives His reason why He's going to be uh, having some problems, I should say, with Israel and with Judah. He starts off at the beginning. This is in chapter 1, where we get introduced to Amos. He simply says, the words of Amos, he says, was among the shepherders of Tekoa, which he envisioned in visions concerning Israel in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam and the son of Joash, king of Israel, 2 years before the earthquake. Then he says, and this is just the beginning here of God's utterances, which go out across the land. He says, the Lord roars from Zion, that's his mountain, that's his heaven, his holy mountain. And from Jerusalem he utters his voice. And the shepherd's pasture grounds mourn. And this is the effect of his roar. And the summit of Carmel dries up. And he says, and then he begins, thus says the Lord. And on each occasion he begins when he's talking about a particular bad guy or bad city or country. Thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, and for 4, I will not revoke its punishment. Now, he's not just talking about the city of Damascus. He's talking about Syria. Damascus is its capital. And he says he's not going to revoke its punishment. There's no way they're going to get out of this because of what they've done. And what they've done is to God's people. He says, because they threshed Gilead with implements of sharp iron, so I will send fire upon the house of Hazazel, and it will consume the citadels of Ben-Hadad. Ben-Hadad was the king. Hazazel was a member of his court who would later murder him, the king, so he could take his place. In fact, God sends Elijah to anoint Hazazel king. He's not king right away, but sometime later he becomes king. It says, I will break the gate bar of Damascus, and I will cut off the inhabitants from the valley of Avin, and him who holds the scepter from Beth-eden, so the people of Aram will go exiled to Kir, says the Lord. God has an issue with Damascus because of what they've done to his people. And then he goes on and says, thus says the Lord. And every time he starts this, for thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of, and he has a name, and for 4. This time it's Gaza. I will not revoke its punishment because they deported an entire population to deliver it up to Edom. I remember Edom. That's the family that's related to Esau, Joseph's brother. So I will send fire. Jacob's brother. I get it right. And so I will send fire upon the wall of Gaza, and I will consume her citadels. And I will also cut off the inhabitants from Ashdod, and him who holds the scepter from Ashkelon. And I will even unleash my power upon Ekron, and the remnant of the Philistines will perish, says the Lord Jehovah. He's using the divine name there. And so he's going around preparing these indictments against these various enemies of God's people. But wait till we get to the end because the story gets better. God won't let sin go unaccounted for, whether it be his people or those around them who are not being kind to his people. He calls to account. Remember, God hates sin. And this is the story we begin with. It's interesting how Amos will eventually end. But right now, we're in the indictment phase. And 2 have been indicted so far. And see you next time as we continue the indictments. Blessings.